Good afternoon. After 6+ years of code enforcement activities at the Bel-Aire Motel, I am pleased to announce that today that this facility, rife with building code and environmental hazards, will be shut down. No one deserves to live in deplorable conditions. Neighbors don't deserve to live next to an eyesore. Springfield taxpayers deserve to be compensated from owners who, for whatever reason, let their buildings decay, which has a negative impact on their neighbors and tenants. Under an agreement between the city and the owners, beginning today, the Bel-Aire will not accept any new tenants. The Batwanis will retain the property, which they can sell after the building has been demolished. The building will be registered as a vacant building until the demolition is complete. Per the settlement agreement with the city will impose a liquidated penalty of $40,000, which will be paid as follows. $10,000 will be paid within 30 days. The remaining $30,000 will be paid on a monthly basis with payments of $1,250 per month starting March 1st. Security for the payment will come from a settlement covenant that grants the city a security interest in the property. I have a lot of people to thank for making this day happen. I'm going to start with Willis Logan. Willis has, with our neighborhood revitalization efforts, served as an advocate, organizer, coordinator, focus group leader, and cheerleader for our code enforcement efforts. He has promoted the program in a variety of venues, organized and participated in the inspection visits on the Bel-Aire and other problem properties, coordinated code enforcement activity among the various city departments and other groups, including the Springfield Housing Authority, and assured a high level of awareness about my concerns for meaningful action from staff. The next thank yous are directed to individuals of the city's legal and code enforcement division. This entire group deserves special recognition, but I'd like to give special recognition to Assistant Corporation Counsel Steve Ron and Krista Appenzeller. Their long and tireless efforts culminated in today's settlement and are a reflection of their professionalism and commitment to serving the public. Next, I want to thank the Department of Public Works and the code enforcement inspectors. The job of code enforcement can put inspectors in a harmful and hazardous situation. I want to give a special thank you to Paula Zink, a code inspector. Paula has worked hard with all the concerned regarding the special challenges posed by the Bel-Aire. Without her tenacity, today's settlement would not have been possible. Both Director Mark Mahoney and John Sadowski, the head of our Building and Zoning Department, have provided the leadership and the resources to make this happen. Another thank you goes to Nathan Mihelich and the Communications Department. Nathan and audiovisual technician Tony Thompson provided high-definition video of the code violations at the Bel-Aire. Their video proved to be pivotal in the administrative court hearings, which was the precursor of today's settlement. Finally, to Polly Poskins, who is the head of the Harvard Park Neighborhood Association, and the residents of the Harvard Park area, along with their biggest advocate, Alderman Corey Jobe. We appreciated their vocal support and their continued efforts to get this situation resolved. The city acted as swiftly as it possibly could under the law to shut this motel down, and your public support is greatly appreciated. This is a long overdue accomplishment, and my thanks to everyone who made it happen. I'd now like to introduce Alderman Jobe. Alderman?
Thank you, Mayor Houston. Well, good afternoon. First, I want to echo Mayor Houston's remarks and thanking our city staff. It's easy being the elected official who represents the residents who've had to deal with the Bel-Aire Motel for years prior to me joining the city council, prior to Director Mahoney being the alderman of Ward 6. So I want to thank city staff city legal, because they're the ones that have to put up with the complaints from elected officials like myself and from Polly Poskin and other neighborhood association leaders who have had to deal with the eyesore for many years. The long troubled history of this problem property is finally coming to an end. And I personally want to thank Mayor Houston, Willis Logan, and everyone on Mayor Houston's staff who have made this a top priority and who have enforced the chronic nuisance ordinance, the abandoned property ordinance, and the exterior code violation ordinance that was pushed by Mayor Houston and members of the City Council when we were all elected into office into 2011. I believe without that ordinance and that teeth, we wouldn't have been able to prosecute and go after problem properties such as the Bel-Aire Motel. So I want to thank Mayor Houston and his administration and team for making this day possible and turning the page. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Joe. You know, as we were waiting to come in here, I was talking to Polly, and one of the things she talked about was when Mark Mahoney was the alderman and meeting with Mr. Motwani to talk in terms of trying to get something resolved. We think about this as a 6+ year effort. I mean, it is a very, very long time. And for Polly, who has just done a super job in the neighborhood and with the Harvard Park Neighborhood Association, and for the residents of that particular area, this is a great day. But you have to think about the frustrations that they have dealt with, the problems that they have dealt with in their neighborhood as a result of this facility being able to operate. This day could not have come soon enough for Polly and the Harvard Park Neighborhood Association, and without their continued focus, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And believe me, Polly can do plenty of squeaking, but she is typical of neighborhood associations across this city. It really only takes a small group of people to make things happen. And when we think about the neighborhood associations that we have some excellent ones in this community, and Polly is certainly the head of one of those and has done just an excellent job. And I'd just like to turn it over to Polly for her reaction to this.
Thank you, Mayor Houston. This is a significant day for the future of Harvard Park and the city of Springfield. After serving its early years as a quality motel for overnight visitors to Springfield and as a temporary bridge home for new residents to our city, the Bel-Aire deteriorated to dangerous substandard conditions and became a poor substitute for affordable housing. Unfortunately, disruptive and criminal activity spilled over into Harvard Park on many occasions and created challenging living conditions for the residents. By reaching an agreement with the owners of the Bel-Aire to demolish a building chock full of hazards and city code violations, Mayor Houston, his staff, led by Willis Logan, the Department of Public Works, with a special thanks to Mark Mahoney and Paula Zink, and the Ward 6 Alderman, Corey Jobe, they've led the way in restoring the viability of Harvard Park and the safety of its residents, and creating new avenues of development along the busiest gateway to our city. Thank you, Mayor Houston. Thank you, Corey Jobe. Thank you, everybody who's participating in making this a significant day for our city.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mayor, how quickly do you expect to be able to get the residents moved out and actually start demolition?
They have within 60 days to vacate the properties. And again, once the property has been vacated, it will be closed, it will be fenced. And then they will begin the demolition process. But the demolition process includes the removal of the asbestos. They will use a wet approach to that, which means they have to have dry weather.
And do you, is the city helping to find new housing for those residents?
The city has been prepared, should the Bel-Aire close down, to be able to help the residents there. So our community development department, along with other not-for-profits within the community, will be helping do that. Sandy Robinson is with us this afternoon. We have someone from the Fifth Street Renaissance organization. They will be moving in to deal with the residents who may need help in terms of relocation.
Mayor, Alderman drove here a few months ago.
Expecting to
I yield the floor to the representative.
How many residents right there are going to need assistance? Well, how many residents live there now?
First of all, we do not know how many residents are there at the present time. As we have gone through this process, a few weeks ago, we were told that there were 16. Paula indicated she believes there are 20. So one of the things that we have to be able to do is to get a handle on exactly how many people are occupying the motel at the present time.
I yield the floor to Sean Bel-Aire.
All right, and Mayor, Alderman Job, I know a few months ago called for the immediate closure, and there was a difference of opinion. What changed and when? When did you both get on the same page on this?
I think we've always been on the same page. Again, one of the things that I understand is the frustration of the neighbors. I also understand the frustration of Alderman Job as he has worked with this, as well as other members of the city council. When I say understand that, I really do, and let me just use this, and I've said this before, and let me just say it one more time. One of the reasons that I picked Mark Mahoney to be the Director of Public Works was because he had been the Ward 6 Alderman. He had to try to work with the Public Works Department that was not responsive to the Alderman or the people of the community. As a result, he not only had the frustration of not being able to get things out of Public Works, he also had the frustration of dealing with his constituents. And for Alderman, that is a very, very difficult situation. So I think that and I'm not speaking for Alderman Job, but I think that Alderman Job was doing everything he could to try to push to get this closed. And as a result of all of us working in really the same direction for the same ultimate purpose, today we can say that it is going to close. And I would
echo the exact same comments you just said, Mayor.
I would suspect the city already has maybe an idea, or Ms. Poskin has an idea what could be done with that property, seeing how it's a main gateway into the city.
Well, we can give you plenty of ideas of things that we would like to see there, but again, the Motwanis are going to retain the property, and their intent is to sell the property, so that once the property has been cleared and the buildings removed, we hope that this will be an attractive area that will provide a good opportunity for development, and that it can be filled in.
Will the city help find potential buyers?
Again, as we would move forward, anytime somebody wants to do something within the city of Springfield, we are always willing to try to work with people. So if there are potential buyers that might be doing something where we could provide assistance, we certainly would.
This property incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, and you're settling for just $40,000?
We are settling for $40,000, but one of the things we are also not doing is paying for the demolition, the asbestos removal, and those types of things. Most importantly, I think what we have is a settlement agreement that within 60 days, hopefully, the property will be vacated, it will be fenced, that will improve the neighborhood. I personally believe that we could have collected more in fines, but I'm not sure how long it would take to work through that legal process. And given how long it's taken us to get to the point where we're at today, it is my personal belief that we're better off coming down with what we would consider to be a good settlement and having something happen today.
Not to be crass, but was Mr. Motwani's death a turning point in this? It seemed like this had been dragging on for a long, long time. Now it's moved very quickly since his passing.
It would be conjecture on my part. Wouldn't want to make a comment on that.
Oh, sorry. Now, looking at the long-term future, does railroad relocation impact the rail trestle that travels along the Bel-Aire there, or?
It does not.
Okay. Just as far as long-term, I know the Fiat outlets filling in those holes took a long time, and now we've seen some progress in that area. Stanford in place. Is that, I guess, a more marketable how significantly more marketable is
It's going to be.
10 years ago?
Well, first of all, it's going to be far more marketable once that property is cleared than it is today, and certainly going back 10 years ago, you've seen an awful lot of improvement. Particularly what's happened with Park South as the entrance to the community. So hopefully we'll have something that is very appealing to the community and to the neighborhood there.
Polly, can you speak a little bit more to the short and long range impact of this? Does this make property values go up pretty rapidly? What are the real world implications of this?
Well, again, I think that would be conjecture. I do think that it certainly is a big sigh of relief to the neighbors. I mean, I think, as I mentioned, part of the complications with the Bel-Aire was the spillover activity. Much of it disruptive and some of it criminal. The neighbors were not hesitant to call the police about a lot of the disruption that would occur at the Bel-Aire. The neighbors were not hesitant to call the police about individuals who would move through the neighborhood and when questioned, didn't live in the neighborhood. So I think the big impact that it has on the neighborhood is that now the neighborhood sort of belongs to the people who live in the neighborhood. And while we reached out on several occasions to the folks in the Bel-Aire about sort of improving those relationships, I think the fact that it continued to be a transient population really prohibited any kind of cohesiveness in them becoming a part of the neighborhood, which we would have appreciated and liked. And I don't think there was any effort by the owners to turn that into more, longer-term, suitable housing for folks who really did need some kind of assistive housing. And that made it difficult to consider that a part of the neighborhood, even though it's in part of the Harvard Park neighborhood.
Did you see any drop-off in home ownership as far as homes being converted to more of a rental property as a result, perhaps, over the years?
Well, I don't have any data on that per se, but I think we consistently have neighborhood meetings. We consistently get together as neighbors, and we hear people talk and say, if not for the Bel-Aire, I would encourage my niece to move here. If not for the Bel-Aire, I might encourage, my son or my daughter to buy a home here. And so what you heard what people sort of weren't apt to do, didn't want to do, weren't inspired to do. And a lot of it is the presence of the Bel-Aire. I think the other thing is the existence of the Bel-Aire, because it wasn't maintained and to the quality that it started out to be, it became a bit of a blight on Harvard Park and sort of the city's reputation in a very viable, visible, busy area of the city. And that's a detraction. So whether the existence of the Bel-Aire inspired people to move away, it'd be really hard to guess. My guess is that it did not enhance people's desire or willingness to move in to Harvard Park.
Is there a date certain, and I don't know who can answer this, a date certain when demolition needs to begin? I mean, we've got 60 days for tenants to be out.
But within 6 months, they have to begin, and the agreement that we have is that as soon as the weather breaks, they are going to do this.
Mayor, will there be any attempt to use zoning to try to steer this in a particular direction? Will you try to steer it away from...
It has its existing zoning.
But no attempt to change that, maybe steer it away from residential and more toward retail or commercial?
Again, we don't own the property. That will be up to them in terms of selling it. It would appear that commercial would be the highest and best use for the property, given the amount of traffic that you have coming in on 6th Street. And also, as was pointed out earlier, with Park South, just on a little further south, you've really had a major improvement in that area, and hopefully that will continue up and across the street there.
And Mr. Logan may be aware of this with his experience of the Housing Authority, but this asbestos removal friendly demolition process you discussed, is this similar to what we saw with the Hay Home several years ago?
Yes, I mean, all the asbestos removal projects are similar, and of course they've got to do that. As the mayor indicated, they're going to be doing that through a method, what they call the wet asbestos removal, and once they get through with that, then demolition can occur.